Hello and a very warm welcome to the 60th edition of the Security Risk Management Body of Knowledge weekly newsletter. So it's been a couple of years since I've published an SRMBOK newsletter, and I apologise for that. Life has been rather busy. I thought I'd try this new format too on video, so if people like it, then this will make things a bit easier. It's going to be focused as always on news and updates, tools, tactics, strategy, techniques, with lots of practical tools. So to start off with that, there's a few new free ones, and I'm committed to doing every couple of weeks a new addition to the library. So there's this AI line, which essentially is a insight for where and how people should draw the line between what goes into AI and what doesn't. It's a simple download, it's free, it's 2 pages, and it's a good cheat sheet to use around the office, and it can be filled in as a form so that everybody's on the same page on what's going to go into AI and what's not. I'm also working on a course, and this book, AI for Risk Practitioners, is already up online, and if you're a subscriber, it's free in the online library, which I'll show you just here. So this essentially is where you can find all of the guides and templates. Just need to log in as per usual with whatever your username is. So there's also a new free risk bow tie method ebook. One of my most downloaded articles is about risk bow tie, so I've decided to do a short book and a course on that, and a longer course on how to use it for risk analysis. So let's get into it. So the news and headlines. So a lot of this is new, interesting strategies which we're starting to see. So a crew linked to Iran have basically hit water utilities in 7 United States, and surprise, surprise, they didn't ask for money. So this is a little bit of a game changer where it's really a proof of concept for them. They're sending a message, but they're also practicing a technique. And I think if one of our fundamentals is that ransomware is going to be looking now for money, that's not always going to be the case. Sometimes they're going to be in there operating behind the scenes looking to do harm. Interestingly, as is a theme with a lot of this material, AI has released, and you can find OpenAI model escaped and broke into Hugging Face, essentially to cheat on a security exam by hacking Hugging Face so that it could actually cheat on the system in itself and pass the exam. So that's a little bit of a scary thing. Nobody really picked up on it until Hugging Face realized they've been hacked, and then eventually AI realized it was their previously thought to have been sandboxed AI. Also, Anthropic has been breaking into companies. So Claude's broken into 3 real companies already, when it's essentially it's had unauthorized access, but it's been trying or been taught to look for gaps. And so it's running essentially a red team ops, but it's an unsanctioned red team. So anybody who thinks AI governance needs more work is probably spot on there. We've also had shiny hunters who claimed the breach that EY disclosed in July was essentially an unauthorized access. So lots of problems going on with AI. We rely on the big 4 audit firms to secure not mine, but a lot of the larger companies to secure their own IT. But you can see the problem isn't just with their clients, as they've got their own issues as well. Another interesting one in Angola, in Africa, the largest telco was taken down just basically hours before its stock market debut. So there's never a good time to take down a company, but when you think about telco being hacked immediately before an IPO listing, no prizes for guessing what happened to the IPO listing and the economic impact of that. Cisco have owned up to shipping a firewall manager with a hard-coded password, which the attackers found first, and it can be protected against, but you need to get in that and make sure you're aware of it. So if you're running Cisco routers, and who's not, but it's a real problem when there's a factory password baked into these systems. US Department of Education lost 607,000 records. That's pretty good, but that's essentially a targeted deck for the next round of spear phishing. So that's the real problem with those sort of information. Almost every country is being drawn into the Iran war, and it's interesting to see we've got a situation a little bit like the 1930s, and I mean really World War II wasn't called World War II until after it was over. So we're seeing multiple countries now being drawn in, not just impacted but actually with kinetic attacks, and I think we're going to see an escalation in the number of countries being drawn into this. There's 195 countries in the world at the moment. Depending how you count it, that's open to dispute and a little bit of debate there, but essentially we'll call it 195 is the accepted term, and more are becoming part of this conflict. We only have to look at Q8 to see how many nations are already involved there in one way or another. So we've got also we've got joint ventures happening where we are hacking or seeing agents with hacking tools, and organisations, ransomware crews are basically leveraging each other's skills, so they're working together, and it's a problem that's only going to grow just as we have to facilitate our own information and share it. This is something that the bad guys are doing too. So look, we've had another round of malicious commits. So essentially, the question is, how many of these dependencies are being addressed? So ultimately, we're seeing a evolving landscape, and the strategies that are changing so quickly. Now, there's strategy and tactics are really interesting. There are a couple of themes here. I won't go through them all, but the first is that the cost of cyber attacks has fallen dramatically. So the proverbial school kid in the basement can now leverage multiple agents, and in fact, we've seen Claude is, all the AIs essentially have demonstrated this capability. But when you add in a little bit of clever coding and you add in the ability to replicate multiple of these, you don't need a team of 20 skilled people anymore. You need one person with 20 AI agents, or 100 or 1,000 AI agents. And the second thing that comes out of these latest strategies and news is they're being increasingly optimized to be harder to detect. So I won't go through all of these, but what we're seeing, for example, is seeing hackers exploiting systems with the usual, phishing, spear phishing, downloadable links. But essentially, they're getting into systems and they're looking at people's crypto wallets. And if that system doesn't have a crypto wallet, they ignore it. If they find a crypto wallet linked to a browser or whatever it might be, they launch their code, or essentially they download a package and then seek to exploit that and steal the crypto. Now, the clever thing about this, if you want to call it clever, is that because they're not spreading it far and wide, it's not being downloaded everywhere, it's being downloaded selectively, it's much harder to detect. So, virus checkers, scanners, and what have you, where previously there's a worm or a virus which is spread prolifically, it just goes everywhere and it leaves a lot of signatures which can be picked up. These are being far more selective now. So we're also seeing a couple of situations now where a server such as Amazon Web Services, I don't mean to pick on them, but are picking up a scan for breaches, for viruses, for hacking, for whatever it might be. But what's happening is now there's a lot of the exploits are very short-lived. They're actually going in, do their business, getting out again. So if they're not active at the time that the scan is running, they're virtually never picked up. So they're starting to be a lot more clever targeting it. We're also seeing things like fake Claude installation guides, which actually are the breach. You might see this great installation guide for some software or code with Claude or whatever it might be, and it's then creating this extra new insight. In fact, it's not downloading Claude necessarily at all, or any of the code with it. It might be downloading exactly what you don't want. So tools and resources, I've mentioned the SRMBOK AI Line, that's a free tool. The SRMBOK Risk Bowtie, that's free. There's also the CISO 2026 minimum elements for a software bill of materials. Great reference for you if you are going out looking for software and you want to find out, be specifying exactly what you are acquiring. There's also some Five Eyes joint guidance on how to adopt agentic AI services. The NIST IR 8374R1, doesn't that just roll off the tongue? Ransomware risk management. So that's a bit of an update there. It's a few years between updates for these, and unfortunately ransomware crews are updating their playbook faster than we are. Still a very valuable service to download. The OWASP Top 10 of 2025, first refresh since 2021. Worth grabbing if you haven't come across it. The ANISA Threat Landscape for 2025. Also, you'll find the WEF Global Risks Report 2026. I don't think there's going to be many surprises in here. for most of you, but again, we're seeing the same sort of risks, and honestly, it's worth downloading for a read. It's worth thinking about when you're using a business case for funding. It's a good foundational risk setting piece if you want to look at the broader context when you're doing a risk assessment. So, it's standard issue horizon scanning stuff, but it's really good as a resource. ASIS International released an updated executive protection standard, so it's just came out September last year. Here also is another link with 25 open source security tools that don't care about your budget, because everybody's budget is getting cut, or at least it's not growing as fast as we'd like it to. So this is sort of 25 open source security tools, especially for small to medium enterprises. When you need to be thinking about how things work, jump in and have a look at that. Right, so I made 2 of my books free on Kindle. One of the subscribers, Charles, wrote to me and he's giving a presentation on the 13th of August. So I've made Tales from the Edge, which is about real life risk management stories, free. And I've also made a book, Future Uncertain, which is my attempt to predict the future, or at least to put the context into AI and describe how AI will evolve. We're used to talking about the threats from AI and thinking about Black Mirror sort of stuff, but what are the systems and rewards that actually reward life? Another book also as a recommendation, Rewiring Democracy by Bruce Schneier and Nathan E. Sanders. It's worth a read. It really will talk about how AI is going to shape the future. So it's a little bit like that Future Uncertain there, but taking a different angle. Quick links. This one I recommend highly. This is a YouTube video, and I really can't say how concerning it is to all of us. Location data is being leaked. They downloaded, or were given in fact, free billions of lines of geotagged phone data. And from that, they were able to put that into a geographical information system. They were able to identify not just spy bases like we did with Strava, but actually locating spies, where they lived, where they worked, where they went to on the weekend, where people went to the gym. They looked at ordinary citizens. They looked at the Secretary of the European Union. They looked at a range of people, and the level of precision is scary. Who they associated with, it wasn't hard at all for them to take a phone line or phone number and use that to identify a person, where they lived, where they worked, even which corner of the building their office was in, which corner of the house their bedroom was in, which gym they went to, and it really was scarily easy. And it turns out that the leak is public. This is all legal. The way these journalists got onto it was that they actually just asked for an inquiry, and it was the sort of data that advertising companies use, supermarkets, shopping centres, they all use to optimise their spend and their advertising for people. But this stuff is scary out there. Also, the US plans for China, how to contain it. The top secret plans there, to the point of top secret, but they're pretty detailed, but they're on YouTube for you. A few more, evaluating security as an enterprise risk management. We all know it's a good idea. RAND, protecting security and science and technology research. They're looking at their March 2026 perspective, looks at a 3-pillar framework for research security. Protecting research outputs. We all know universities leak like a sieve. Publish or perish is the mantra. It's not about keeping secrets there. But every day and in every workspace, some of the crown jewels are walking out the door. There's another good, excellent global cost of insider risks when you're looking at funding, and nobody has a well-funded insider risk management program. So insider threat is growing, not least of all from AI, which is one of the risks that came up in some of these other threads. But this is good argument as a foundation for a business case. This gives you some hard facts and data. Leading on to Talis's 2026 report on AI as the new insider threat, and what do we do about that? A little bit of interesting trivia about how the Veteran Administration facilities are being compromised. Tens of thousands of times per year. Some cool jobs. Have a look if you're looking for work. These are just some of the interesting ones around the world, a bit more global, where to find them. Some upcoming events, the latest conferences in South Africa, GRC in San Diego, Sydney, Atlanta, London, and so forth. And of course, there's the usual on a lighter note if you're just looking for a bit of humour. So by all means, I hope that's useful. If 3 people email me and say they'd like to see this as a quick overview and a little bit more comprehensive or less comprehensive or whatever, please drop me an email as a reply to the newsletter and I'll keep doing it. Thanks very much. It's good to be back. I love writing these newsletters and I hope they're useful. Cheers.